Very happy to say Dion Fanning from The Currency is in studio. Hello.
Hi Joe, how are you?
Very well. So the boom to bust cycle that is the Republic of Ireland football manager. Boom time now. We're all partying now, Dion.
Everyone partied.
Celtic Tigers roaring. Michael Obafemi is leading a parade through Dublin. He's injured for tomorrow's game, we're hearing, but it was an important win for Stephen Kenny. It was a very enjoyable performance. There's a sense that the referendum that happens after most Stephen Kenny games has now been shelved once again.
Yeah, it would be great to, move it from beyond the kind of boom and bust.
Yeah.
And try and I don't think Stephen Kenny necessarily always helps himself with that and try and talk about it in terms of everything being a referendum, because when and I noticed after the game on the Saturday he comes out and starts again talking about this is what we're trying to do and we're trying to build something. When you keep talking like that, people are going to keep asking questions about what are you trying to build when they don't see any evidence of anything being built. So sometimes I think it will be wise for him to simply just, as Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Like sometimes a win, just take the win. Don't try and imbue it with some symbolic kind of example, or just or put it in always putting in the context of a bigger framework, because then when things go wrong, people are also going to go, hold on, where's this frame? What are we building towards here if we're going to watch this rubbish? But equally, I think we are, like, he is trying to build towards something, and I do feel that I don't know. It is very hard not to kind of think, okay, let's go down the road of talk about these things again. I think it is. I think there's an inevitability about a team of Ireland's level swinging from boom to bust.
Sure.
And we can talk about the tactics. We can talk about having an extra man in midfield. We can talk about all these things. But there is also a reality about Irish teams forever that, when there's been a crisis, when they're under pressure, not just Irish teams, but it is a characteristic of lots of teams who aren't great teams, that when they're under that kind of pressure, they find a response. And I would also say that I think Scotland were made for them.
Well, they were ripe for the picking.
Yeah.
On the floor, physically, emotionally, away from home.
Yeah.
You couldn't have dreamt of a better scenario. Hadn't realised how on the floor they were until we saw them actually pitch up. I was worried about the game in advance, and then you realised they're all like Andy Robertson. They're all empty. Yeah,
they were. And now again, a couple of the early chances go in, and it changes. And I think that is the thing about Ireland playing Scotland. They could play again next Saturday, and it could be 3-0, 2-0, 3-0 to Scotland. Or
not least if it's at Hampden, which it will be
Yeah.
eventually.
So they are a team that, and if you look at their record, even obviously they came second in their World Cup group, but again they're in a group that seems very familiar. They're in a group with Denmark. They beat Austria. They're we've got those kind of, their experience is very similar to ours. Like their Euro performance was pretty average. You look at them then, you look at them against Ukraine, so this is a really average team. And now they've a couple of players, like Robertson being the standout one, that you would put into the bracket, which I think is always the thing that differentiates teams at international level, is just that one good player. And Robertson you would put down as that player because he's playing for Liverpool, but he looks, as you say, spent right now.
He's played an extraordinary number of games, so he must just be on the floor tired. I mean, having a marvellous player to propel everything forward, we saw it for the first 10 minutes against Ukraine the other evening, when Jason Knight seemed to just be inspired for those 10-15 minutes and went out of the game somewhat. And then at the weekend, supported ably by a very good Malumbi performance and Troy Parrott, that brilliant run and that brilliant finish. But Obafemi, what he did was really extraordinary. akin to when Callum Robinson was scoring hat-tricks and scoring multiple goals. You look at Obafemi and you do think, well, this is absolutely wonderful. It's not a sustainable model. At the same time, we can't expect this of Obafemi on too regular a basis, not least tomorrow when he's injured, but going forward generally. That's why you can't get too excited by what happened at the weekend. And if McGinn takes that chance on 26 minutes before Parrott's goal in 27 minutes, who knows how the game pans out. So it was a great occasion and it's great for the manager, but I agree with you. I don't think this is, well, QED, everyone. Look at us now.
No, but I think, I think it's more to do with state of mind and perspective on it as well, because Obafemi is a player who should have a decent enough future at international level, because we're not talking about Premier League standard. We're not talking about Premier League standard for anybody. We're not talking about Champions League standard. Let's be more specific, like Champions League standard, top of the Premier League standard for anybody really here, including like all the way through and including Stephen Kenny, if you like, who I think is the right man for the job. But he is the right man for the job for a number of reasons. He has a vision for it. He knows what he wants. I think what he wants is the right thing to want. But also because Ireland need to kind of accept that there is no... accept their own limitations, and so accept their own limitations in terms of what we're shopping for. Like, to go out and say, let's get in, and like this is the thing. Whenever you say that, talk about Stephen Kenny, people say, well, there's better people out there. We could do this or we could do that. We've got a manager who understands Irish football, who understands what it's about, who is worth persevering with. But it is a manager of a level where he's going to make mistakes. And he's going to make mistakes that are going to be harder for him to are exposed in a way that the mistakes he made in previous jobs weren't exposed and weren't analysed and weren't dissected. And that must be a new experience. And you can see that sometimes.
I know. It was quite striking, actually, looking at the Sunday papers on quite a few of the front pages yesterday morning. There was the quote from Stephen Kenny, "I know what I'm doing." Yeah. And so that is somebody who's aware of all the criticism and the microscopic looks at his decisions. Like, for instance, the point has been made that for the game yesterday, what day are we? Saturday, that he made the changes and he got the changes right. And that's true. But then there is the flip side of that coin, which is really, does that expose the extent to which he got those decisions wrong in the previous two games? David Connolly was in this show a couple of weeks ago saying, put in Obafemi now for the Armenia game and the Ukraine game. The finish to his season is excellent, and Callum Robinson's not playing any football. Put Obafemi in. And then things like Knight dropping into midfield, that extra man in midfield against the Scots working so well. And you think of that really, that Ukraine midfield full of craft and how exposed Cullen was next to Hendrick. And again, a lack of energy in there, which Malumbi provided at the weekend. So you like, this isn't Kenny's first month or two in the job. He knows all of these players. He knows the requirements. He knows the demands. You'd have to say, in hindsight, yes, he rectified some mistakes, but there's a fair argument that there actually were mistakes against Ukraine and Armenia.
Yeah, of course there were. But he's not the only manager. Like we come away from Manchester City in the Champions League talking about Pep Guardiola's selection mistakes. I think, again, he's going to make mistakes. I think you're dealing with players who, not just because of their own limitations, but because of also the nature of international football, you can't be sure what you're going to get from players
in terms of the quality. Totally agree.
And the consistency of performance. And you say pick up Obafemi instead of Robinson, which looks like the right thing now. But we were talking about Robinson. Robinson was the hero. Until these matches are now, it's like, oh my God, we're stuck with.
No, absolutely right, and I think Robinson absolutely had enough credit in the bank to be picked against Armenia.
I would have been arguing
at that point. You wonder, though, after that game, the evidence there. Maybe Ukraine had a punt, but I mean, it really was a bit of a punt. It was questionable then.
But I would have been arguing, and like this is a very example of admitting that with hindsight, what I would have argued beforehand would have been wrong. But I would have been arguing the opposite of what David Connolly was saying, and saying, forget about what they're doing at their clubs. The manager should be picking on the basis of what they've done for him. And I think that is one of, again, we need to get away in general, I think, from the idea of let's see who's what, or put it this way, we need to form the basis of our side on the basis of what they do at international level.
See, it's funny. It depends who I'm talking to. I either come across as very down on the team or very up on the team. So I'm sort of playing devil's advocate in touch with different people. Because with Connolly yesterday, when he reiterated that point, I did say, but hang on, you did play in a team where Jason McAteer is picked when his club form at Blackburn is on the floor and he's been turfed out of there. And you saw what he did because Mick was loyal to him and he upped his game for Ireland. So you've seen that firsthand.
But how many times has that been described as, a stroke of psychological genius from Mick McCarthy? He ensured the loyalty of those players because at the first time when they encountered trouble at their clubs, Mick didn't go, you're out, son.
And Connolly accepted that and then just said, but I still sort of think you should have picked Obafemi. So, these are the intricacies of being an international manager where you can't win.
But they also come along. We don't know, but if he picked... No, I think Malumbi was a key selection.
Yeah.
And, there is a... And, you have to... Obafemi, the difference he made and the energy he brought and the level of skill he brought obviously make a difference. But I think there are so many unknowns with any Irish international team performance. Like, that is what Kenny you want to get. You want him building towards something where you go, okay, we know what's going to happen. And he's, we know there's going to be some kind of degree of consistency of performance, and that is something that is going to take longer. And I think with the players we have, it's just something you almost have to kind of accept as well. Like, okay, there's going to be or else we are this isn't a kind of blind defence of Stephen Kenny. I think again you have to negotiate quite a fine line between saying this is what we should expect with the players we have, and equally saying we can do something more with the players we have than we were led to believe when we didn't play any football. I think the most dispiriting thing about the Armenia and Ukraine performances was that sense that it sort of had knocked the feel good kind of factor out of Ireland again, which kind of also demonstrates that it's pretty brittle, that feel good factor.
Yeah,
because it's back. I was at my son's mini World Cup on Sunday morning, and again everyone was talking about Ireland, Scotland, and people who were there, were talking about what an incredible atmosphere it was. Everyone was buzzing off the back of the game on Saturday.
Yeah, and
it's just like, and that seemed gone. That seemed lost after the Ukraine game.
Yeah.
So it is a process where this is going to happen.
Sure. Like, there are certain things with what Kenny is trying to do which I think most people accept and give him a lot of rope. I'm talking about the 3 chances gifted to Scotland in the first 25, 26 minutes. We're trying to play a progressive brand of football. We have a certain calibre of player. They're going to be put under pressure. Things will go wrong. And you're hoping that over the course of a tenure, the effort to play progressive football there outweighs the sloppy goal or two. We're invariably going to concede and it's going to be a bad moment, and that's going to happen. And that's what I'm willing to go with when it comes to Kenny, as opposed to what we were doing under previous management, which was just refusing to play football a lot. But I suppose what jumped out against Scotland, and where there's a real legitimate criticism of this team, the biggest difference against Scotland, the tactical innovation for sure, like the movement of Knight into midfield helped, and Malumbi's energy, but it's that energy. So I turned on the game. I was at the Ukraine game. I was at Croke Park on Saturday. I came home and I watched the game and I knew the result. But straight away what jumped out instantly in the first minute was the energy of Ireland without the ball, the aggression. I mean, think of Obafemi's third goal. It comes from aggression and it comes from pressure. And there is part of me that does wonder if there is... Because there are, there's a great story where Anthony Daly was picking the brain of Joe Schmidt, and Schmidt was asking him, well, different pre-match routines and things you do. And I think Daly had said that, well, on the bus I go through, and I don't want to misquote Anthony here, but this is my memory of it, the 10 things that we're really going to focus on in the game. And Joe Schmidt's sense was the 10 things. If you can get 2 of them to stick in their brain, good. And I think there is something in this Irish team where we're watching this big transition and they're very, very, very focused on keep possession, play here, they're in my shape. And I think at times they forget to be awful to play against. And we were awful to play against out of possession at the weekend. And for me, that has been a big complaint, a legitimate complaint under Kenny. And like Keith Andrews, brilliant, tenacious midfielder on his day. It was lovely to see Ireland really get after Scotland. And I don't think we, like against Ukraine, but that was a cake ride for Ukraine.
That was a what, sorry?
Cake ride. I mean, it was just Ukraine on the ball, had all the time they wanted. There was nobody getting into them.
But you see, not like...
And I don't think that ever goes out of fashion. I don't think Keane smacking over Mars, I don't think Malumbi tackling players ever goes out of fashion.
But how often, like, that is, again, the boom and bust of Irish football that predates Stephen Kenny. Like, you know, we like, if you look at Paris in 2009 versus the first leg. You know, everything about that. Now, there was, you know, for whatever reason, there was a liberation. Okay, maybe it wasn't like but they were on the front foot in different ways. And that is, again, a function of teams who feel they've got nothing left to lose. You know, and I think there was something about that Ireland team. Like, you're kind of, with your backs to the wall, you're kind of, right, okay, we've got to go out and fight now. And everything else then becomes kind of secondary to this kind of, we've got to do that. And I think, like Terry Venables used to say, it's a bit like Joe Smith, Terry Venables used to say, the last thing you tell them is the first thing they forget.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And I think that like that stuff is, again, it's hardwired into Irish footballers. And when it's required, and when it's like, okay, you can imagine what it was like on Saturday after the week they'd had. It's like, go out there and put your mark on it.
Yeah.
And they do that straight away, and then that everything else follows from it.
Yeah, I take that point, but they still tried to play football. I mean, they still gave the ball away, playing out from the back 3 times. They still stuck to the Kenny principles. It wasn't, we're hoofing everything forward, we're getting them turned, and we're going to put them under physical pressure. They still stuck to the principles, but crucially, there was more energy about it. And like you're saying, when it's backs to the wall, I accept that. Are their backs to the wall? Their backs are pretty much against the wall in Poland, I would think, against this Ukraine side. There should be the same fight there.
Yeah, you would like to think so, but I think that's what I mean. I think there is a psychological element that makes it, you know, on those nights, in those situations, it makes that fight, makes it easier to bring it to the surface.
Totally.
You know,
it's an emotional state. Yeah,
and, like,
I get that.
and I think when it's sort of, you go into Armenia after however many months it was without a game, and it's like, okay, here we are in June playing the Nations League. And, you know, you start off badly and you start off slowly, and the game just lacks anything. Like, nobody, I feel sorry for analysts and people who have to go through and watch that match again. You know what I mean? Like, nobody ever wants to watch that match again.
Yeah.
And again, and that's also an interesting thing about the last, you know, those 2 games, which is slightly different from other Stephen Kenny games where they've been enjoyable to watch no matter what was happening.
Yeah.
They weren't. But I think that energy, again, you want that as a given. But I think they're a group of players where that's going to ebb and flow as well.
Because they're just human beings, or because they're bad pros?
Are they the only? They're the only two options.
No.
No, I think because that's just reality. I think it happens for lots of teams. I think it's probably more difficult in international football to maintain it when you have those gaps, when you have. I think it was a surprise it didn't happen against Ukraine after Armenia. I think that's probably what surprised people a little bit.
That was the worrying one for me.
Yeah.
Armenia didn't worry me because at times low block, men behind the ball, it's a low scoring sport. It just happens. We see it happen all the time. That was frustrating. But Ukraine was the worrying one, which is why this Scottish performance is so welcoming. I think after that Ukraine result, more so the performance, there was an air of wondering, is this actually getting a bit sticky now?
Yeah.
Did you not think?
I did. I like, but again, that's sort of. I did something with you guys on the morning after it, and like, we were talking about it, and I was like, okay, let's just stick with. I was sort of I didn't. It's funny how the media, not blamed, but like how things accelerate into, right, let's now have a conversation about Stephen Kenny again.
Sure.
It's not. It doesn't necessarily have to be the conversation, and again, that's also a function. Like we don't have a huge amount. We've talked about this before. There isn't a huge amount to talk about. There isn't a huge amount that people find that are like, it's not is Roy Keane going to show up today? You know what I mean? It's not, has Roy Keane gone home? It's not it will, like, Robbie Keane is, it's not, we don't have those personalities that that really capture people's attention. So I think there's something, just, we're drawn sometimes to talking about the manager, and okay, after 2 defeats like that, that's going to happen. But I was kind of slightly surprised that we kind of got there again. Now, again, I don't think...
Did we get there, though? Like, who was... I didn't hear anybody say, well, this puts Stephen Kenny on the back foot. I mean, he needs to... His position is up for discussion again. Who was saying that?
It was some of the papers on... Some of the papers on Saturday before the Scotland game were saying it's... that some members of the board were concerned about the way it was going.
But I think it was concern, not a good state to be in after. Like, that's concern. That's nicely between boom or bust.
I might be wrong, but I'm sure there were sort of, if they lose these 2 games, if they'd lost Scotland and in Poland against Ukraine, if they lost those 2 games, there would be questions.
It wouldn't have been good.
No, it wouldn't have been good, and maybe they were right to have that conversation. But what I'm saying is there aren't, like, we can talk about Obafemi, Robinson, all these kind of things, but how, it's not Sexton versus O'Gara or something. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't capture the imagination.
Sure.
The way some of the great sporting debates do, because the players are, all trying their best and all, but it's not even like, pick Wes Houlihan, pick Andy Reid. It's not even that level. The players are being there. So, like, this is what everything funnels towards any result just turning into a kind of referendum on the manager. Now, as I said, I don't think a manager helps himself clearly with, decisions he makes at times, and also with, trying to frame everything as a kind of either a demonstration of how well they're building towards something, because that is creating a hostage to fortune for the times when that doesn't happen. But it is kind of, I think it is where what we have to kind of stick to.
Yeah. So, what's result or performance tomorrow which falls within the parameters of, that's who we are. That's about what we can hope for.
It's 1-1, isn't it?
No, but actually, to your point, I think Ireland can lose tomorrow, and it's no great disgrace or not a particularly worrying issue if it's in the right way.
Yeah.
Like, away from home, sort of neutral venue, but away from home, and presumably a lot of the Ukraine frontliners will come back, and their B team wasn't half bad. Yeah. So Ireland without Obafemi, you could see 2-0, and that shouldn't lead to.
No, but I could also see Ireland playing. I think a team at home attacking Ireland, giving them some chance to get behind them. I think you could see it's a game that's a bit more suited to that spirited.
Oh my God, you're setting us up to fail here now.
Well, I'm setting us up for a 1-1. I'm talking up a 1-1. I'm just as I'm saying this, I'm just picturing a glorious 1-1,
which wouldn't be dreadful. So I suppose the other thing which happens with this team as well, quite a bit, is now, we found the solution. It's Obafemi up front. It's a third man in midfield. We've cracked the code. And that's always misguided as well. We'll play different types of opposition. We're going to have injuries. There'll be different demands. I mean, this now shouldn't be necessarily the way Ireland set up, no matter what, until we reach another point in the road where the pressure's on and we have to pull something out of the hat. I've no problem if Stephen Kenny mixes and matches and changes personnel and doesn't necessarily have three in midfield against different opposition.
Yeah, I think three in midfield does make sense. But I also does make sense. But I also think who the three are. I think Molumby coming in for Hendrick, did make
huge difference.
Huge difference.
Now, when Ireland do have the ball, Molumby doesn't really get forward in the way that Knight does. So it was almost asymmetrical at times. There was a real overload on the left hand side, and McLean was full of energy and verve as well, and a bit of quality as well. Whereas Molumby tends to sit. But I think given what he contributes in terms of energy, that's probably a price worth paying. Because Hendrick's had a good year for Ireland. I mean, he's so often dismissed. And even in the past week, at times he looked the most likely to play a telling pass to unlock a defence. But I suppose, I don't know if he gives you...
Well, if you're talking about that energy, and you're talking about that setting it... Well, again, maybe that's the debate we should be having. Maybe it should be maybe the O'Gara versus Sexton.
Hendrick or Molumby.
Hendrick versus Molumby.
We'll put it in the headline and see how many views it gets. How about that? But there is that issue with Hendrick where there's there is the nagging sense of a player in there.
And well, he's always been a really elegant player who's capable of doing, creative things. But it is accompanied by a sense, and I don't think it's correct in terms of what he is doing, but it's correct. He has he gives a sense of casualness, I think, that makes it very easy for people, including myself, to be critical of him. I don't, it's not how he is, but he has that air, which is probably why he's able to do the creative things that he does. But I think when you have that on one side, and then you have Molumby bringing you that energy and that bite, and what you go for maybe again is
opposition dependent.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
But then you talk about McLean. Like McLean had one of his best ever games for Ireland. Like that, and so things like that. Like
95 caps in, we found the answer.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's it, or 93 or whatever. And how many people felt this is like James McLean is going to be the solution? How many people's hearts sank when they saw the team and okay, how many of these people we would see this is where's the future?
Yeah,
Well,
I've heard through the grapevine that he really surprised management.
Right.
They probably went in along similar lines to your line of thinking there, and then this guy's, in terms of his application, quality, fitness, bit of speed, you name it.
But that again comes back to this idea of it being, again, it's not just. I don't want to say that it's a function of just the Ireland team or the level they're at, because it's you can go through all sorts of lots of teams where the same thing happens, but nobody would have said, okay, let's pick that team, and you're actually going to get. You know what you're going to get in terms of work rate and approach and attitude, but actually for so much of the good attacking stuff to be coming from McLean as well. I don't think it's unfair to say that surprised people. I think to the level that it happened on Saturday, and it was great. And as I said, it was really is up there with one of his best performances for Ireland.
He's a lot of quality. Can we finish on a very positive note?
Okay.
This kid Troy Parrott is having this lovely knack of being able to score goals at a young age at international level, and really high quality goals. So if his last two are the Lithuania winner, and then the goal that Obafemi set up, and his run, the quality of his run has been underestimated vastly. It was a great pass and well executed pass on Obafemi's part, but I mean the run created the whole scenario, and he just finished so calmly. I mean, this is I know he hasn't exploded at Spurs, but this is very promising now.
It is, and it's great because you think of the pressure that's been on Troy Parrott to be the next big thing, to be that player, and everything again. You know, we talk about people being scrutinised, like that scrutiny to be under. And it took some time with that pressure to see that. And maybe the fact that the spotlight has gone in slightly different directions, and he's come into the team under the radar a little bit, not with that same level of expectation. And now he's doing it, is great for him, and it is exciting. And I don't think, again, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I don't care, from an Ireland point of view, it doesn't matter what happens to him at club level. Like, this is just get this player out there and keep him, and I think Stephen Kenny is the ideal man. I think Stephen Kenny will understand him, will know how to get the best out of him. And again, it may not be every game, but he is a player. That run was exceptional.
Exceptional. It really was.
It really was exceptional.
It was exceptional.
And it was a thing of beauty, the whole thing, and the ball, obviously. But then for that run, and then to be able to, just to not even have to break his stride for any of that, just continue with the celebration. It was one of those. It was just a thrilling moment.
Yeah.
It was as thrilling, if not more thrilling, even than the Obafemi goal.
I agree with you. Yeah, in some ways, it's more heartening. It's more repeatable.
Yeah, it'll never happen again.
So, Ireland to win comfortably in Poland, and we'll discuss over the next couple of days. Dion Fanning from The Currency, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.